Hey guys, my name's Ryan. I'm one of your campus pastors here with Focus, and I'm going to be giving our sermon for today. So it's going to be over the Great Commission, specifically talking about our pursuit of people. So we've been talking about the Great Commission over the past couple weeks, and there's that part in there that says, "Go and make disciples." And really, this whole idea of pursuit of people is going to have a lot to do with that little section of the Great Commission. So I'm going to talk about that. But before I get started, just want to highlight a couple things. One, every week we want to talk about giving. That's so that we learn to be a generous people. As followers of God, we're called to do things that are uncomfortable and things that stretch us, and one of those can often be giving. So I want to remind you, one of the places you can give is to Focus. Helps us keep things running, keep things going. Anyfocus.org/giving is where you can set that up if you want to do that. And then also, second thing, church. On Sunday mornings, if you're not a part of any local church, we really want to encourage you to consider that. Outside of just college ministry stuff that goes on in Focus, being a part of a local congregation gives you a lot in terms of just this kind of biblical idea of being a part of your local community. And we believe that the college sphere is important for that, but also being involved in the wider church community around us is important. I go to Denton North Church, which is a church here in Denton that is somewhat associated with Focus, but not directly. We're not like directly from there or anything like that, but a lot of us on staff, or actually all of us on staff, go there. And then there's people in our ministry who go to different churches around Denton. But Denton North Church, it meets now every Sunday morning at 9 at the Greater Denton Arts Council. So you can Google that and look that up, or ask your Corfa. Your Corfa may go to that church, they may go to a different one. But either way, we want to encourage you guys to attend somewhere and be a part of that. Okay, cool. So back to this pursuit of people idea. I just want to reread the Great Commission to start us off. It's in Matthew 28:19-20. It says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I've commanded you, and remember, I'm with you always to the end of the age." Okay, so this is the very end of Matthew. So apparently these are Jesus' last words that he's leaving his disciples with. And if that's the case, I really think, that begs our attention. So let's break this down a little bit. Specifically, this idea of making disciples. Jesus said it, to some of us that may be something we've heard before, that may be something we're like, great, already thinking about that. To some of us that may just sound like kind of Christianese, like this phrase, make disciples. It's something you only really hear in a Christian circle. So you're like, what does that actually mean? But I want to unpack it a little bit. So the disciples were the people who followed Jesus. You may have heard of the 12 apostles, and those were the people that are spoke most often of in the Gospels as the followers of Jesus, although it does mention other people who were following him, like some sort of crowd often. But these disciples were the people he seemed to spend the most time with over the course of his ministry. So they watched his ministry, they learned from him, they were confronted by him, confused by him sometimes. And reading from the Gospels, you see this whole following Jesus thing. It was not a 9-to-5, job, and it wasn't a hobby in their free time. Mark 1:17, when Jesus says, "Follow me," to his first disciples, their choice resulted in a radical shift in their life, and for the rest of their life, really. So this is important because the God of the universe shows up in this world in human form, and the best way he sees fit to spend his time on earth is with a bunch of nobodies. These were not impressive people. They weren't the religious leaders of the day. They weren't the people who were leading Israel in any either political sense or anything like that. Anything impressive. None of that. These were just some average people. They were tradesmen, like fishermen, or one of them was a tax collector, or things like that. But anyways, so Jesus spends day and night with them and teaches them to give up their own agendas and pursue people the way that he does. He literally says to the fishermen in the passage, you can see it in Luke as well, it says, "I will now teach you to catch people." And I have to think there's a little bit of humor there, but the effect and what he's asking of them is no joke. The reason we are sitting here in a circle, or you're sitting there rather, 2,000 years later, still talking about Jesus, is in large part because generation after generation of people have passed along this torch of discipling people and pursuing Jesus together. And if this is the method that Jesus took when he came, then I say that's plenty convincing for me and for us to think we should do the same thing. And that should be our approach. Good luck trying to convince God. He could have come up with a smarter approach. I think this was, in God's view, the best and most strategic way. So, if that's our approach, this whole people first, starting with these relationships, if that was the approach for Jesus, what's that look like now for us? I just want to point out first, one of the things about this is that this is really good news for us. The good news, I mean, in the sense that the Great Commission, this whole making disciples thing, it's something that produces just amazing meaning and blessing in both our lives and in the lives of the people we choose to pursue Jesus with. I can still vividly remember my time when I came into UNT as a freshman, and I had just moved from out of state, and I didn't know anyone coming into UNT. I had some church background and wasn't really sure, where I was at in terms of my beliefs and whatnot. And within that first year, someone came alongside me. His name was Aaron. And through Aaron and through, other people in my core and really the ministry at large, there was something that just kind of flipped for me in terms of understanding Jesus. And really a lot of that came back to this whole relational approach. Aaron spent time out of his week, once a week, every week, sitting down with me, going over scripture and also just asking questions about my life that really people did not ask, in a way that was loving, in a way that was empathetic, but also in a way that, invited me into living my life the way Jesus actually talked about his disciples living their lives. And it was new to me. It was no longer, just this sermon I was listening to. It was something personal. It was a person sitting across from me who was sharing about how he was, trying and sometimes falling short of following Jesus and inviting me into that kind of life. And it was revolutionary for me. And so I believe in this. I really do. I've seen it work in my life. I've seen it work in countless others. And I just think it's so neat that God allows us to participate in this really meaningful thing with him. And through that, he blesses us and the people around us. I think that's really great. But how do we do it? So I got 3 steps here I want to point out in terms of just how we approach this. Step 1, and this is also point 1, say something to someone. Just say something to someone. That's literally step 1, engage. And what does Jesus do first in these gospel stories? He finds the fishermen and he says something to them. He initiates. He doesn't walk by just noticing they're fishing and busy and say, oh, no, I better wait. I better wait till they're not busy. They look like they've got a lot going on. No, he just walks up and starts a conversation. So what do? We engage. We initiate. In fact, I would recommend getting used to now, if you want to follow Jesus, just get used to now being the person who initiates all the time. Just be okay with that now. Don't wait for other people. Don't question whether or not they really value your friendship if they're not initiating. Just get used to the idea now of being, what, I'm okay with initiating. And people will initiate with you too. I'm not saying it never happens, but I'm just saying get used to it. Be okay with stepping into that role and being the one who is ready to initiate every time. And you're on mission. So the mission involves people, and we can't do that without being willing to step out of what maybe feels most comfortable or what we prefer, and just sitting back and waiting for other people to initiate with us. We got to be ready to go. We got to be ready to be urgent on mission. So that's step 1. Just engage. Say something to someone. Step 2, you've engaged, you've shared. So now what? Share and learn together. Share and learn together. That's step 2. So the disciples, they spend a lot of time around Jesus after this, and their relationship with him, you really can read the Gospels and see it evolves, it changes over time a ton. We see him teaching them, explaining, these parables that were confusing. He explains some of those to them. He does rebuke them. And then also you see stories where he sends them out to minister to people without him. And then ultimately, at the end, calling them to teach and serve and do as he did with other people after he was gone. So he washes their feet, he restores them, and he loves them through that. And so really, if you take all of those little snippets we see in the gospel of this interaction Jesus had with his disciples, it paints this picture. They shared their lives together. They certainly, the disciples, I would say, grew together through this experience. Now, we're in a slightly different situation. When we befriend somebody, neither one of us is Jesus. So, we don't have to waste time comparing ourselves to the other person or evaluating, what you want, what you see as your needs in that friendship. Decide from the get-go, you know what? I'm going to be a servant, and I'm going to be a support to them. And you can even say something like, hey, would you be interested in learning how to pursue Jesus better with me? I'll do my best to be a good friend to you. And I think we both have a lot of growing towards God that we can do together as we pursue a friendship. And just ask them if that's something they're interested in. It may sound a little weird. It may sound a little, abnormal for sure. But I think this is the kind of frankness we can bring whenever we're entering in a friendship with somebody that we want to be intentional, we want to be about pursuing Jesus together. And so if they're interested, great. You can now work in discipling each other to this goal of molding each other based off of Jesus' life and what he said we should do. And we do that by calling each other to this example that Jesus set. And that's done so well in the context of relationship. It's definitely harder to do that either on your own or just as someone who sits in an audience and listens to a sermon. It's so much easier to use the context of a friendship and a relationship to help shape each other towards Jesus. And so this is an amazing process. And sometimes out of this comes these lifelong friendships. And the gospel is able to work in these relationships and do what the gospel does best. The gospel restores and heals and gives life. And this happens over and over through these relationships. Okay, so that was the second one. Share and learn together. And then lastly, go out into the world and do mission together. You've got to realize we can't be just interested in focus, just interested in becoming a place where we're all buddies and, we just have our Christian bubble. We're on mission together at the end of the day. A huge part of your friendships with people should involve supporting each other and being on mission together. It's about bringing God's kingdom. And what a joy that we get to do that with other people. This lone wolf thing is not something we have to do. We don't have to be the lone person in society trying to uphold the gospel. That's not the way God intended for a community of believers to work. We're there to support each other. We're there to carry each other through the tough parts of being on mission together. So that means figuring out ways to engage with the society around us, figuring out ways to love and bring light to people who are outside of our, Christian immediate bubble. And yeah, God gives us these relationships as the built-in support for this. He knows it's hard. He knows we're going to need these people in our lives. In Mark 10:29, Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brother or sister or mother or father or children or farms for my sake, for the gospel's sake, but that he will receive 100 times as much now in the present age, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and farms, along with persecutions, and in the age to come, eternal life. You see, we do relationships because God calls us to. But we realize through that, God intends to richly bless us and the people we're in a relationship with, and then the people around us through what we do on mission with God. You know, it's not just about us each on our own achieving some sense of just personal piety where we spend all this time in personal devotion. Being connected to God, doing devotionals are what constitutes as a good part of our relationship with Him. But it's not the whole picture. We have to be big picture Christians, understanding that we are called to love and serve the world around us. And we offer real, genuine, loving relationships and community as a part of that. And so that starts by engaging and by learning and then by sharing and then going out into the world on mission together. And for those of you who've been around for a while, I want to remind you of this. And if you're new, I want to highlight this. Our goal in this ministry is that the stuff of relationships, discipling, one-on-one, good friendships that pursue Jesus, that is our bread and butter. That is what we hope to do most of all. And so we're not going to be perfect at it. There's no doubt about that. But we see this as Jesus's way of changing the world and bringing the kingdom. It's not showy. It really isn't. It's not really impressive by the world's standards. And sometimes not even impressive by the church's standards, We're not about big production worship with expensive lights and professional musicians. Even before all the COVID stuff started happening, that wasn't something that our community was known for. You're not going to come to one of our events and see us, emphasizing a desire to pack out a stadium and have like really impressive speakers for that or something. I'm not condemning that at all. I'm just saying this is our model. We're just crazy enough to think that if we can do one-on-one pursuit of God together, relationships and discipling well, and try to emulate Jesus and what He did, that will ultimately be the best way we can spend our time on this earth. So today, instead of a big discussion to follow this video like we normally do, I really want us to take these first two steps, engage and share. So I want you guys to split up into pairs. If it's an odd number, a group of 3 is fine, just no groups of 1. And we're going to do something called walk and talks. It's exactly what it sounds like. You walk and you talk. And as you do this, I want you to see this time on this walk and talk with this other person in your core. I want you to see that as an opportunity to put all these ideas into reality for a little bit. So just do me a favor and put out of your mind all the things that I know distract us so often in these times. So if it's homework you could be doing right now or need to get back to, TV show you want to hit play on when you get back, or maybe a game in the Discord ready for you and waiting, I just want to encourage you to put that aside for the next 30, 45 minutes. And I really want you to make the most out of this time. Build a friendship with this person. And I'd recommend maybe picking the person in core that you feel like you know the least. So I've got a couple questions to get you guys going. But if you finish these questions, just keep going on your own. It's not like you race through the questions and then you're done. Just take your time, spend time with each other, pursuing getting to know each other. Ask them questions to understand them and really be a good friend to them in this time. Okay, so 2 questions. I'll say them here, and then I'll also have them sent to your Corfa so that they can text them to you so you can refer to them as you walk. But 2 questions to get you started. And they're kind of multi-part questions, sorry. But number 1, what's your story? What's your background on faith? What was your family life like growing up? What parts of your life now do you find most meaningful? So this is the whole engaging, getting to know each other thing. And then number 2, what's something you're learning lately about God, about life, and about yourself? And then what are questions you have about any of those things you've learned about? So I kind of tricked you. It's not really 2 questions, it's a lot more. But I really want those 2 to kind of at least jumpstart a conversation for you guys. So yeah, hope you enjoy, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.